All right, thank you everybody for joining us on this webinar. I'd like to remind everybody in this room, if you could please turn your microphones off. We're going to have a Q&A session at the end of this discussion, so you'll have plenty of time to pretty much get your questions through for the panelists. We should start in just a minute, just making sure everybody's filed in. All right, so I'd like to remind everybody that this session is being recorded. First of all, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining ShamsTalks, a webinar series where industry experts discuss key media topics. Today's webinar is on the topic of user-generated content and its impact on brands. I'm Ahmed Dawood, I'm a presenter at Pulse 95 Radio, and joining us for the discussion are His Excellency Dr. Khalid Omar Al-Madfa, Chairman of Shark Media City, Shams, His Excellency Marwan bin Jassim Al-Sarkal, Executive Chairman of the Sharjah Investment and Development Authority, Shuruq, Her Excellency Reem bin Karam, Director of Nama Women Advancement Establishment, and Dr. Suhail Dadal, Associate Professor at the American University of Sharjah's Department of Mass Communication. Again, a reminder, if you just joined us now, please keep your mics on mute throughout the course of the webinar. There will be plenty of time to ask questions at the end. So over the course of this webinar, the speakers will lend their expertise on the power of user-generated content. And we hope that by the end of this session, you will have a solid understanding of user-generated content, which is also known as UGC. We're going to talk about what it is and why it's important, and how Sharjah's leading organizations and associations use UGC to further their brand. We'll also examine the different types of user-generated content and how user-generated content helps strengthen customer relationships and builds organizations. So to kick things into gear, we'll start with what exactly user-generated content is. UGC is any content, whether text, videos, images, reviews, that's created by people rather than the brands. Brands will often share this user-generated content on their social media pages or websites or any other marketing channels. The reason we're talking about user-generated content today is because it's very good. It has proven to be an effective marketing strategy, and it greatly resonates with consumers and brands alike. In fact, user-generated content has surpassed other marketing trends over the years. It has revolutionized how brands target consumers, especially in today's fast-paced digital world. So we'll kick things into gear. Let's welcome the opening remarks by the chairman of Sharjah Media City, His Excellency Dr. Khalid Omar Al-Madfa. You can pick it up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ahmed. And thank you all actually for joining us today. We are thrilled here at Shams to launch the ShamsTalks, a series of webinars that will gather thought leaders and experts from various sectors in order to discuss prominent issues, explore stimulating topics, and share their expertise with aspiring individuals, as well as establishing businesses for SMEs and startups to help them embark on their business journeys. I would like to start by welcoming my fellow panelists who have joined us today. Your Excellency, Mr. Marwan bin Jassim Al-Sarkal, Executive Chairman of Sharjah Investment and Development Authority, Shuruq. Your Excellency, Reem bin Karam, Director of Nama Women Advancement Establishment. As well as Dr. Suhail Dadal, Associate Professor in the Department of Mass Communication at the American University of Sharjah, and definitely our moderator, Mr. Ahmed Dawood, presenter and producer at Pulse 95. So welcome and thank you all for being part of today's webinar. ShamsTalks, in fact, is an all-new initiative by Sharjah Media City with a mission to strengthen the business environment and develop the media sector in Sharjah and the UAE as a whole. We plan to highlight and discuss key issues with aspiring professionals with the ultimate objective of promoting a constructive climate that will drive the development of various sectors in Sharjah and contribute to the Emirates economy. In today's webinar, we will be putting, as mentioned by Mr. Ahmed, the spotlight on user-generated content and its effect on brands. We will be exploring how unpaid online content that is produced and published by online users can be a turning point for businesses in their marketing strategies. I am joined by a panel of knowledgeable and accomplished experts to discuss this topic today, and I look forward to learning from them and sharing our perspective and experiences. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for joining us, and I look forward to a dynamic and eye-opening ShamsTalks session and many more in the future. Thank you. To you, Mr. Ahmed.
Thank you, Your Excellency. This question will start things out. This one goes out to Your Excellency Marwan bin Jassim al-Sarkal. Could you talk to us about, we're going to be talking about UGC and the impact of UGC and UGC as a marketing strategy. So let's start talking about what makes UGC such a powerful marketing strategy for brands.
Assalamu alaikum to all of the panelists and to all of the 94 participants that are here. I first of all would like to congratulate Shams for all of their success in the previous years. Since inception till today, we have seen a dramatic shift towards media when it comes to Sharjah. The inflow of investments in this sector was dramatic. The quality of the sessions and the type of events and activities and seminars were mind-blowing, I would say. ShamsTalks is a new initiative that is an added initiative to many initiatives that Shams have done. Today, we're talking about a very exciting topic, a topic that we all live in it, a topic that influence, creates, but stays very authentic to organizations, to companies, and for a lot of entities to reconsider their strategy, to reconsider the way how they promote and talk. To me, and I'm talking from a personal level, I believe user-generated content act as a social proof to promote your brand and your brand message. It helps you expand your social followers. It makes you strengthen your relationship with your client. It's also trust with the target audience and builds an SEO value and definitely then boosts sales. UGC is also proven to increase consumer engagement, which is something that comes from public-based content on a content you're actually sharing. UGC is also important in making the public looped in projects, therefore understanding what is coming next and what is happening at the moment and what is planned campaigns by highlighting the past, the present, and the future. I also see that video content, as example, is a really effective way to create UGC irrespective of what your content is. And it can help your audience connect with you in ways other media can't. And that's why you'll see reviews, increase in reach, increase engagement. You'll find the results much higher than just a photo content. However, also user-generated content can spread awareness about your business and solidify your brand image that will enable you to be more competitive, I would say. If we go to numbers, we notice that 48%, as per the data that I've received, of marketing professionals believe that content created by customers can help humanize their marketing, i.e., it creates the authenticity that we basically lack when we create a general media campaign. And that's why you'll find UGC is much more effective. Is also humanized approach is an important element to build an emotional connection with the audience and gain the trust. And the trust is the very important thing between what we used to see and what we are seeing today because of the power of the media, of the social media or the UGC. Consumers, as per the record, says that 2.4x are more likely to say user-generated content is authentic compared to brand-created content. And that's very important. That's why we see a lot of people would trust a YouTuber rather than a PR release. That's where, and this is based on data here, that Stakla 2020, they say that they trust the user-generated content more than they trusted traditional advertising. And we all do that. We'll always go to someone that knows about the business to hear from them. This is because brands don't pay for user-generated content. It is unbiased and created by users. So its authenticity is the key, which builds trust. The first aim in any marketing strategy is to gain wide reach and exposure to a massive audience with enormous exposure that increases chances of engagement and conversations. And I think if we go to the key points, is authenticity, it is trust, and this is what consumers today like. What the message that we would like to send out is that entities, companies, products, all of those must really consider the importance of the UGC. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. And Your Excellency, Dr. Khalid, could you also touch on the power of user-generated content?
Yes, thank you very much. And as mentioned by Mr. Marwan, that yes, people do have more trust on what is said by another person. So it is the word of mouth that they're looking for, actually. And in fact, I'm talking about myself. When we used to travel back in the day, I mean, on booking.com, actually what makes me book one hotel rather than another is the review that hotel have received. So, and the internet, as it is actually allowing the two-way communication that we're used to in the normal life. So these platforms are utilizing such capability to deliver the word of mouth in a written format, with, in some cases, with photos, with even a chance for the provider to reply and to rectify matters if it is necessary. So definitely some may brush off user-generated content potential to impact purchasing, but as mentioned by Marwan, nearly maybe 80% of users say it has a high impact on their purchasing decisions. We also can remember the one hashtag campaign by Apple when they released the shot on iPhone, and they used those photos on billboards around the world. So this actually gave the people and the participants that exceeded actually 10,000 submissions, they gave them the chance to share the camera's qualities and influencing the decision to buy the phone or not. So this actually, and other figures mentioned, proved just how powerful user-generated content as a marketing tool for even for brands. So I would say that in this day and age, brands cannot afford not to invest in user-generated content strategy. And this is actually what I have to say. And definitely, we're here to listen more to the expert that we have around us. Thank you.
Yeah, certainly. And these examples really testify to the power of user-generated content and its success over the years. I'm interested in how Sharjah's organizations and associations in particular use user-generated content. So Your Excellency, Reem bin Karam, through your work with Nama Women Advancement, how did you leverage user-generated content in your campaigns to communicate the values that you communicate?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Khalid. Congratulations on the launch of ShamsTalks. It's an honor being here today. And I'm going to try to keep it short so we can stay within the time frame. I'm sorry. To answer your question, actually, I think in the modern world, anyone with an opinion, access to a smartphone or a digital device could be a potential content creator, and that is a given, as we have been seeing around us for the past few years and intensely in the past few days. User-generated content taps into the desire of human connection and strengthens a community, definitely. And we have seen this impact. At Nama Women Advancement Establishment, for instance, we find that conversations centering on women empowerment, especially on social media, are now bigger than ever. There's definitely a surge of inspiring, uplifting, relatable content, transcending on different media formats. Nama always makes sure that it listens intently to these conversations taking place, and this helps us strengthen our communication strategy, as well as definitely increase our attachment with our followers and our viewers, and also helps us reach out to the global women empowerment community more easily. And that by default answers to our mandate, initiatives, and causes. Usually user-generated content is, or let's say user-generated content is a very powerful storytelling tool, and people are looking to engage. Obviously, the content has to be authentic. Authenticity is a key, because today everyone is their own investigator. They can catch you up in a lie within seconds. So that we need to definitely always be careful and mindful about. As well as we always try to find things that may enlighten one another, inspire the audience, and definitely something that we can vouch for. And last but not least, I think in Nama Women Advancement Establishment, we strongly believe that it is no longer a choice to listen to your audience and community. It's actually a necessity.
Well, thank you for that. And it's pretty remarkable how easy it is today for consumers to reach out to brands and to have that sense of interaction and closeness, and that drives the authenticity of it. And I'm interested in that as well, because if we were to have this conversation 10 years ago, we'd be talking in completely different terms. It's a fact that we've gone through a sea of change in terms of technology, new social media applications, and a shift in the way we consume things and the way we're being advertised to. It's called a non-linear customer journey now. Before we buy a product, we check out reviews, we watch YouTube videos. There's really so much that goes into it. And I'm interested in the academic perspective on this. So I'm happy to have you with us, Dr. Suhail Dadal. Could you touch on that sea of change, the impact of social media and all those technological changes on the way brands market themselves? I believe you're muted at the moment. Sorry.
Okay. So hello, everyone. Thank you for having me on this fantastic talk, and I'm looking forward to the future ShamsTalks as well. I think this is a great concept, and probably if I want to actually talk from both my academic point of view, but also from the industry, because I worked in social media since 2002, so I had a long history from even before YouTube. So I want to talk about this kind of progress from the early days till now, and how that shift in behavior, how does that kind of affect brands, but also how does it affect society as well? Because there is kind of a two-way effect. And I think that's really important to look at. Probably I will kind of start from the beginning and talk about the whole idea of authenticity and what do we add to that? Because I think from a, let's say, from a behavioral point of view, it's not just authenticity that is the value of user-generated content. That's a key value for brands, but also for the user themselves, there's a value, which is when they become heavily invested, because they actually creating content rather than they just passive viewers of content, they actually also engage with brand in a more meaningful way. And I think that's a really, really important value. The idea that they have heavily invested in creating this content, that creates a shift, psychological shift that makes them at a higher level of engagement with that brand. And I think that's really, really important. And understanding that is really important. What has been happening in the last 20 years is this user-generated content has become more kind of entwined. So the brands are also interacting back and forth. In the early days of user-generated content, we had the little occasional YouTube videos that are put, and then so there was like brands working on their own and users working on their own. And what we've been witnessing in the last maybe 2-3 years, which I think is really, really interesting, is this kind of semiotic relationship, this interweaving between the conversation that brands are having and that the users are having. And therefore, the engagement becomes entwined and becomes powerful, strong, but also must be dealt with care, because we add to it some other things like the ethics of how are we really overusing the users? Are we giving them value back? So there's a lot of questions around that. Just to give you like a little example with TikTok, which 2 years there's a phenomenal rise, and brands are all playing catch up, trying to join in. For example, like last year, TikTok was very popular with teenagers. Within 6 months, maybe 1 year, now we have 36% of adults over 30 years old also on TikTok. So it's a very quick shifting ground in terms of behavior of users. And we have to try to understand that, but also have a meaningful engagement. But there are brands that have had amazing success because they understood the platforms. And that's really important. For example, like Chiptol last year for their Halloween in November, they did a contest or competition where they did the regular yearly come dressed, and they offered users a value. Aside from the UGC, they also offered them a 1 year free burritos for the whole year. So there was a real value for the user. And what happened is they had 250,000 contributions on TikTok with 3.6 billion views. If you think about 3.6 billion views within 6 days where that competition ran, that is phenomenal. So this is about understanding the platform, the user, and then also aligning these values with the value of the brand. In my opinion, and I know we are short on time, and academics can talk for hours, so I can, I don't want to hijack this. So I will just add one more important thing is, in my opinion, I think it's really important for us as brands or even governments and any official platforms to understand the values of the community. It's not about the value of your brand. It's about the value of the community that you are targeting. And I think that's the most important point, because once you really respect that community, the user-generated content not only just becomes authentic, but it also becomes relatable and it becomes integrated. And then that engagement is meaningful, powerful, and ethical. And it's a big discussion. We could even talk about how YouTube just changed their policy 2 days ago. Yeah, we can dive into a lot of discussion, but maybe I'll leave it here. Yeah, thank you.
I mean, there's a world of difference between a brand that just keeps saying, buy our product, it's good, and ones that actually build communities that people could gather in, and they build something incredibly meaningful. Quick reminder to everybody in the room, if you could mute your microphones, that would be great. We also have a Q&A session at the end, so you can start typing your questions for the speakers now into the chat box, and we'll be sure to get to those at the end. Now, back to the discussion, Your Excellency, Dr. Khaled, could you talk to us some more about user-generated content types that you, as part of Sharjah Media City, have utilized in your social media campaigns?
Yes, sure. Thank you very much. Actually, currently, there is a film shown in different cinemas, which is actually the product of such a concept. Actually, it is the result of an initiative that we launched in 2019 as the UAE Entertainment Experience, which is a project that sought to produce the first crowdsourced film in the UAE and the whole Arab world for that matter. So in that initiative, we selected the best of the submissions in different aspects, whether they're acting or directing, and we in fact received quite a large number of participants in the initiative. And those best ones have been selected to participate in the movie that I talked about, which is called 218, Behind the Wall of Silence. I believe I might be wrong in the name. It is there actually shown on the different cinemas, and it just been premiered on May 20th. And I would like to invite all to go and watch it. So this is actually one good example that we have utilized in that regard. Another important example is in our last participation in Exposure 2021, where we've in the lead up to the Exposure International Photography Festival, we reached out to photographers and showcased their work at the event itself. So we invited photographers, and the good ones or the nice photos that we thought, and the judges actually we had they selected them, and we participated in the event with those photos showcased. Other examples also, we had during the lockdowns, we had the Home Rec 2020 competition, where under this hashtag Home Rec, we ran a campaign where people in their confinement in their homes participated with videos, and those top-rated content was then reposted by Shams through our accounts, and that was to help the young creators to reach a wider audience. So the campaign wasn't just simply a way to pass the time during lockdown. It deeply resonates with our vision at Shams, where we strive to be a hub for creativity and enabler of talents and creators. More examples are there, but a continuous one that we actually look carefully at is the Google review on Google Maps and on Google platforms. We truly take pride of depending or of looking into the Google review, which are sincere testimonials from our clients. And in fact, we compile them and put them on display on our website. So they help showcase our values and commitment to creating the right environment and providing the best services to the entrepreneurs that we target. This too, we believe, is a form of a user-generated content campaign. So our objective from these and other initiatives that we launch is to create a favorable media environment, encourage creativity, and further promote the Emirate of Sharjah in the media and creative fields. So we do that primarily by shedding light on local content and taking it to the regional and global audiences. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Now, one topic of concern is how easy it is, or the sense of ease, to engage with brands. And I'll come up with an example here. I follow this brand on Instagram, and it's a brand that I like. I buy their products. But there was one time where they're asking people to make video submissions, and I didn't feel like it. So sometimes there's a wall where the brand wants you to do something and create user-generated content, but there's a friction in a wall that makes it really hard to go ahead and do that thing. So this one goes out to Your Excellency Reem. How do you make it easy for people to seamlessly create user-generated content and not feel like it's a chore? Sorry, I believe your microphone is muted.
Apologies. I think, well, it's when someone creates content and it's great shareable content, the only reason they're sharing it with you is because of that trust. And I think Nama always has focused on building the trust and nurturing the relationships, whether it being with their partners or even amongst its audience. And I think one of the ways we've managed to do so is storytelling. People love a good story, and people are always drawn to listening and hearing, a very rich, deep, authentic kind of story. And when it's from one person to the public, I think that's what starts building people's trust, when they realize that the person talking or creating the content is actually just another person. He's not a famous person, not a fashion icon or and whatnot. So they don't feel intimidated. I think we can empower more people definitely to create engaging content. But first we must obviously encourage creative freedom, definitely. And the reason why people engage on social media is because they find something that adds value to their lives. Something that connects with their personal and professional needs. By encouraging creative freedom, we actually inspire people to share their unique experiences and stories. And secondly, obviously, we definitely must highlight the user stories. So it's not just them creating it, but you're actually making sure that it's getting displayed because they've actually put in all the labor. And ideas and obviously content generated by the audience of any brand speaks directly to their interests and their needs. And this is where we learn a lot, even internally as Nama. Using our media monitoring, we're always looking for the next best thing, or what is the next trend, or how to motivate people in order to engage them, whether it's our mandate or whether it's for one of our causes that we're supporting. So empowering and sharing such user stories is definitely a strategic approach that would always resonate well with the target audience.
And on the topic of encouraging consumers to engage with brands, let's talk about hashtags, because hashtags are a popular way that brands market themselves to consumers. And Your Excellency Marwan, could you talk to us about how your organization utilizes hashtags to encourage customer engagement?
I think what makes a hashtag successful is keeping them short, keeping them easy, being creative, making them unique, and mainly related to your brand. And I think if the hashtag is hard to remember, then it's going to be difficult for people to actually relate to it. And I think one of the things that I loved about one of our local companies here is Emirates Airline, when it was about discovering new places or flying more. And those are way much related to the product, yet they don't talk about the product itself. They will never talk about the luxury of having 500 channels. They will just make you discover, make you think about how your brand is. And I think if you give the chance for consumers to create hashtags that will relate to your brand, I think it will definitely create a huge impact. I actually use it a lot when I post on LinkedIn, and the amount of users that actually communicate with me due to those hashtags is magnificent, and the reach is just so strong that you'd reach people that you never thought you were gonna reach. So if entities make it easier to create hashtags, then it's going to be way much more powerful for you. So whether it's a campaign, whether it's a competition, no matter what it is, as long as you make it simple, easy, short, you're going to gain a lot of impact from users that are either following you or are going to actually follow you.
Yeah, that was a pretty interesting point as well about the fact that, yeah, you have those popular hashtags on LinkedIn, and that's something brands can leverage, that people follow specific hashtags and they could find your content there, but also for brands to make their own unique and charming hashtags as well. Thank you for that. And while we've extensively discussed the different types of user-generated content and how to utilize them in those campaigns, Dr. Suhail, what are the ways that brands can measure the success of those initiatives?
Well, I mean, aside from the traditional ways, which is, analytics and using tools and actually counting eyeballs and numbers, which I would say that's quantitative and looking at how many, there is a lot more important and deeper way to measure this, which is a qualitative way, which is looking at the type of the engagements that users do. And there is a whole spectrum of engagements that we look at, and, from just purely putting a like or responding quickly or like answering a poll to user-generated content that is heavily invested, like making a video. But then we even can go a little bit higher in a more interesting way, which is the empowerment, which is where users feel like they initiate content for your brand, or they can defend your brand, or they would be ambassadors for your brand. To me, these are the real values that you can measure, is the values where you cannot use any of these social media tools to measure them. It's where you actually sit down and analyze the actual text and maybe read the reviews and read between the lines. And I think, you need someone in your brand that is really attuned to that someone that actually do not just get bogged by the numbers and the big data, which I think big data is amazing, but there is actually a really, really intrinsic and very interesting value with small data, with actually being able to talk to these users and see what they like, what they don't, how did they respond. So a lot of people will go and do a campaign, which is fantastic. They measure the success and return on investment and everything. That's also great, but they miss something really important, which is going and talking to the users and say, okay, what did you think of the campaign? What did you like? Did it really make you align with our brand? So this kind of small data conversation, I think is the next level of measuring the success of any campaign, especially campaigns that have user-generated content, because sometimes just analytics can be misleading for that.
So do you feel that there's an over-reliance on analytics and big data right now?
I feel there was, but I know that there's a lot of companies around the world, especially a lot of companies that are really interested in, for example, the relationship between influencers and the relationship between user-generated content, because there's now an extra dynamic, which is influencers, user-generated content, and the brand itself. And then this kind of relationship is a complex one that big data cannot measure. So you also need to use the small data, because from small data, you might find out, for example, that you've used 10 influencers, that one of these influencers was actually detrimental and you didn't know. Big data will not show you, but some users will say to you, okay, these influencers were great, they align with your value, but why did you use this influencer? Yeah, so these things are really, really important. I think the new way we consume content kind of opens the door for us to actually have a very more intimate conversation with our users. And I think that will be the next level in measuring success of interaction with brands and users.
And on the topic of the ease of interaction between brands and users, Your Excellency, Dr. Khalid, can you shed some more light on that topic, making it easy for consumers to reach out and engage with your brands?
It is actually important actually aspect of the the way that you communicate with your audience. It's actually who do you consider your audience actually to start up with? Who are your targeted customers or clients that you are wanting to talk to and to present? Knowing that, then you could definitely pick the right tool or the right channel to communicate with them. So as I mentioned before, actually, we actually put a lot of importance on the Google reviews, and we have actually run many different campaigns using hashtags that have received actually a good response, and we have had from those events back in the day, actually in 2018, in one of the campaigns during the holy month of Ramadan, where we actually publicized a hashtag campaign saying "Shine with Shams." So that actually received, and we received actually 1,400 posts where people have actually shared their photos with their families, with their community, showing the spirits of Ramadan. So, and that was actually run on the Instagram platform. Other events or other campaigns, we have actually utilized Twitter and so on and so forth. So yes, we need to, or the brands need to know whom they are targeting, and accordingly choose the right platform for that matter. And as an example, I have here some data saying that while 44% of Twitter users are aged between the 30 and 49, the audience on TikTok and Snapchat skews towards a younger audience, where the largest user group being from 18 to 24 years old. So this clarifies choosing the right platform for the communication. Plus also, interestingly, actually, I have here tweeters on the Twitter, 68% of them are men, whereas in the Pinterest is much more favored by women, that makes 78% of its user base. So also gender choice is also another aspect of the choice of the platform that we use. Definitely in our actually in our effort to reduce friction, actually this comes from having a closer relationship with our audience and our users. My team here strives actually to pick the right, and this is an ongoing and a long-term project for us. And this event today and the subject today is actually part of that ongoing project for us, is to pick and to talk the same language that our audience are wanting us to talk into. And these are guidelines that we try to adhere to in Shams, to develop the campaigns and the strategies of communication that my team have. And definitely we might be getting it right, or we might be also getting it not too right. So there isn't a textbook for it, but we definitely have to try and to test and to pick the right ones or the right results that we have, and as clarified by Dr. Suhail. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. And I'd like to remind everybody here that we will be having a Q&A session at the end. So if you would like to ask the speakers any questions, please use the chat box, type in your question, and we'll certainly get to it by the end of this. Now, let's talk about negative user-generated content. When someone, for instance, leaves your brand a negative review on Google, or they leave you a nasty comment, or they say they don't like your product and they start spreading stories about it. Your Excellency Marwan, can you talk to us about how to deal with that type of feedback and also its consequences and implications on your brand and its promotion?
Yeah, see, life is not perfect at the end of the day. You would always find those people that actually would criticize you, or people that would support you, and we've seen a lot. And the most important thing is how to train your employees not to react in a very aggressive way. And I think who manages your platforms should be so expert in coming back with the best comments. Thankfully, in Shoroq, we didn't have that many comments that we can say we had an issue with. But most importantly is not just to discuss everything publicly. And I think having it on a private messaging system would be ideal. Trying to compensate and reaching out to the person that have posted negative comments. But we've seen also someone which is commenting in a negative way on platforms that are not really relevant, which creates a big issue. So I think YouTube recently changed their policies in having the thumbs up or thumbs down system because it was abused by some of the users. However, I would say that it's very important not to dismiss any comment and to take everything as important as a positive comment. And I believe one of the things that we have learned in Shoroq, that we are always there close to our consumers, close to our investors, close to the people that care about us. Because even if you comment a negative comment, you basically care about it. Usually we get comments, for example, a negative comment that was commented on their own platform. So we would basically investigate and make sure that we get back to them as soon as possible, because time is also very important. If you respond after one day, it's too late, by the time it will spread out. You have to respond so fast that you can actually overcome the negative comment to become a positive experience. And that's the most important thing. So timing is very important. Being very patient is very important. And seeing everything that there is a way for you to improve your services, rather than it's someone hates you or something like that. So it's all about everybody is here to serve and to create the better products or better experiences.
And Your Excellency, Reem, could you also touch on this topic, negative user-generated content?
I think am I muted? No.
Yeah, you're good.
Sorry. As Mr. Marwan just said, life is not all pink and rosy. You will get the negative comment somewhere, but it's also very critical that you answer with a lot of diplomacy, and it's only normal. A vital outcome, anyways, of the user-generated content is the empowerment it brings with the content. It brings the content creators through continuous engagement with the wide audience base, and to them, whether it's a positive comment or a negative comment, that would add their own agenda or to their own add to their own agenda, as I said. As such, it becomes very imperative to studiously monitor what is put out on social media. At NAMA, we always monitor conversations that directly or indirectly mention us, to basically gauge the consensus and shifting perceptions of our audience. People are always very quick to share their comments or criticisms on social media. We address our responses based, obviously, on two main parameters. Firstly, it being, does this piece of the user-generated content offer constructive criticism? Our goal here is to respond with respect to clarify any concerns of our audience in the most professional way. Secondly, is the user-generated content defamatory or culturally inappropriate? Depending on the severity of the language used, we either choose to respond with reason or hide inappropriate comments from our community. Yes, I agree. Social media is all about giving a free rein to your opinions, but luckily, we are in a country, the UAE, which is a nation that takes pride in respectfully practicing the values of tolerance and diversity. So for us, we kind of have that bigger framework that we are protected by. Not as much as I can say for other people, but for us, we're very lucky for this, actually to have this. Thirdly, I think, or personally, I believe that there is no one-size-fits-all kind of approach or guideline to a user-generated content. But I think if you have it within your strategy or communication strategy, therefore, you can offer a personalized response if you have that embedded. Make sure that your team is ready, as even Mr. Marwan shared, that they're ready to answer rapidly, answer professionally, answer politely, and gain them as a user rather than as an attacker or, let's say, a criticizer. There are a lot of cynics, but then we also have faith in people that whatever, if people see what we're doing and we shed proper light on whatever we are doing, then we will gain the audience that we are looking for. And sometimes in some scenarios, we actually had our followers and our community defending us. So that showed the trust, and that was kind of a hurrah moment for us, where we were really proud of our community that we have built over obviously a few years. And the Namat team, alhamdulillah, under the guidance of Her Highness Sheikh Jawahir, and also working together with the different organizations, and Shams it being one of them, and also Shuruk being the other. We kind of, I think, mostly tap into each other's networks, and we kind of support one another when it comes to if we're facing any problems. It's really interesting to hear their side of the story and how they manage to do it. So when we have open conversations, and especially like this platform, I think this actually broadens the horizons for everyone, not only as content creators, but also as providers of services. So I think that's it from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. And it's pretty eye-opening here to listen to how Sharjah's leading organizations and associations communicate with their followers, and the way they view the relationship as well is absolutely incredible. What we're going to do now is we're going to have the Q&A. So if you have any questions for the speakers here, please type it into the chat box. We already have several comments here that we're going to get into. And this one goes out to Dr. Suhail. Dr. Suhail, what is the most important marketing strategy should a startup take into consideration in launching their new product/service? This question is by Ammar As-Saka.
I think the most important thing is your value as a startup. And when you actually set up your mission and value, is that you embed in that understanding who is your community and how they are aligned with your values. Because as a startup, one of the most important things you want to build up at the beginning is that really good relationship with your new formed community. And that's really, really important, because you are an unknown. So the clarity of your value, that has to come in through your social media platforms, has to come in through your website. All channels of communication that you have to be all very narrowly focused on who you are from a value point of view. And I think a lot of people get bugged with, all the bells and whistles and why am I so great? But I think that's what not community really cares about at the end of the day. That's not what's going to make them stick.
And we also have thank you for that, Dr. Suhail. We also have another question here by Aya Ali. This one goes out to Your Excellency, Dr. Khalid. Where do you see user-generated content improving moving forward? How can we all do better in getting closer to our consumers?
Thank you very much for the question, and which is a very important one, actually. I think it is actually stems from the availability of the content, the quality of it, actually. As we all know, it all goes back to content. Content is king. So we have to be, yes, creative, but we have also to put a useful content for our followers. It has to make sense to them. It has to be connected to their life, their expectation from the brand, and so on. So for that matter, here in Shams, we do have, and please follow our accounts on the different platforms where we advertise very useful initiatives or very useful courses, online, a lot of them currently, where we actually invite knowledgeable people, very useful in their subjects. Hopefully to the company owners that have companies here in Shams, or to the community at large. We want actually to elevate the level of knowledge that the companies working with the Shams license to have better knowledge in reaching out to a wider audience. Our aim in Shams actually is to support companies, entrepreneurs, creative people, reach a wider audience, a wider market, to guarantee success. So this is the aim actually for today's webinar, as well as the aim for the other courses that we run in Shams. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. We've got another question here by Altaf Rashid. This one goes out to Your Excellency Marwan. Can you talk to us a little bit more about influencer marketing? Is it a big key part of user-generated content? Is that something you utilize extensively?
Yeah, influencers has two things, you know. Sometimes you end up paying to influencers, and they might convey the wrong message. Sometimes it becomes too commercially driven that you overspend on influencers, but then it happens to become something that fires back, because those influencers are too greedy. Then they follow the money rather than the content or the product itself. So I think my message is to decision makers or companies is to find the right influencer that has the right DNA, that fits your brand or your product. And I think that's so important for you, is that will have a huge impact. So for example, if you found an influencer that you feel that he has a right followers mix, because it's very important who follows that and who does he influence, because each influencer influences a different type of groups. And you have to make sure that he actually walks the talk, and he does what you actually want him to do, because it might fire back on you and might damage you more than actually benefit you. And influencers are like stars today. So you have to just choose the right ones that will promote it. But I would say, you know, using them is necessary, but don't get abused by using them. And I think that's the most important thing that we have learned. We never looked at influencers by numbers of followers that are following them. We always looked at if they match our product. And that's the most important thing for us.
Thank you. And we've got another question here. This one is from Mira Ahmad. This one goes out to Your Excellency Reem. She's asking, how do you use the power of social media and user-generated content to further empower women? Could you talk to us more about that topic?
I think, as I mentioned, before, storytelling is one of the techniques that we use at Nama Women Advancement Establishment. And I think with like over time, we realized that no matter how many campaigns we did, no matter how many, companies that we dealt with, unless we're telling a story, a genuine story, it doesn't work. And I think it reaches people more, whether it's, you tap into their emotions, you tap into, their subconscious mind. It's the content that you create that has to be authentic, that has to be not acted out rather than told by the individual themselves, is what basically resonates with people.
Thank you very much. And on that note, we are pretty much out of time right now. Sorry if we couldn't get to your questions in the chat box, but we hope to have you join us again the next time we do these talks. It's very important to have these conversations to make a good, positive impact on our communities. A big thank you all for joining us for this seminar, and also like to thank the speakers for lending us your time and expertise. And I hope that everybody here found some good insights on the topic of user-generated content. We hope to see you all again, and thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Khaled and everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.